What's your kind of perspective on the architecture of we'll start with Star Wars and Lord of the Rings. Like what kind of things stand out to you from those fictional stories or whatever in terms of like an architecture, or even I don't know if urban design would qualify, but if it does, feel free to speak on it.
Because there was actually there was a lot of articles published about Wakanda.
Oh.
When Black Panther came out as this Afro-futurism for both how it worked in the architecture of it, as well as the urban planning of it, because everything in there was walkable or mass transit. So there was a lot of talk about, how they designed out that city so it looked lived in, it looked real. I think the movies that you called mind, which are Star Wars and Lord of the Rings, they do that as well. They make really good job of these completely fictional cities, completely fictional locations that looked lived in and real for the most part. There are a few locations in Star Wars that are just, quite apparent that they kind of cut some corners. But like the new Mandalorian, they made a very good effort to make everything look lived in and rational.
I'm curious, what would be some examples, like in either Star Wars or Lord of the Rings, of like some places that where it's like, how would that, like for you, kind of set off your alarm of like that wouldn't work? Like what the hell?
Probably the one that unfortunately comes to mind would definitely be two locations, and they involve the exact same environment, and that would be Mustafar and Mordor. There's so much open lava.
I think FEMA would have something to say about that.
But other than that, I mean, a lot of it just, it especially like Lord of the Rings, they took a lot of time to make sure everything looked like it was purpose built, like it actually had thought put behind it. So like when you look through Minas Tirith, they made sure that each level kind of looked like it advanced from the next one. Like there were different changes in each level as you went up. The same with Rohan. They researched very well what a standard Viking era settlement community would look like, and they replicated it, but this time on a mountainside.
Yeah,
so
that makes a lot of sense. I like that. I was going to also ask, are there any particular buildings over time that have been personally inspiring for you? Like when you were studying architecture, or even now that you think about like as an urban developer, like you would love to see in the place where you live.
Yeah. So something that from history that has always kind of captivated my attention was, and it's such a mundane answer, the Pantheon in Rome.
Sure. Yeah.
It is, just this massive concrete dome that was built over, 2,000 yees ago now, I think, at this point. So,
isn't that the one with a whole bunch of arches?
It's certainly one of them.
Does it? It's got a whole bunch of arches on the outside. Isn't that correct?
That's a Colosseum.
Oh, that's what I'm thinking about. Okay, never mind.
You're thinking Colosseum. Pantheon is it's the largest dome that was created until I think the Renaissance. There was finally one that surpassed it. But yeah, it was. And then like the urban planner side of me, what I find so fascinating is you look at a map now of where the Pantheon is, and it's in the heart of Rome. When it was built, it was outside the gate. So, that for an urban planner side, I'm just fascinated by that, like how this city has grown that much around it.
It's such an organic way of like forming around it. I get what you're saying.
Mm-hmm. I'm curious to know, on that same kind of note of things that you would like to see, is there anything from fictional media that like particularly jumped out at you that you were like, that's a brilliant idea, why has no one actually done that? Like how they saw something in Back to the Future and they were like, oh shit, we need to make hoverboards, or like I'm curious to know from like a design of buildings or something like that, is there anything that's ever jumped out at you that you were like, why isn't this real?
I mean, the biggest nerdy side of me, I would love to see either the Jedi Temple or the Senate building actually real.
Is that just because you just want to go walk around inside of it, or do you think that there's like an architectural benefit to designing that
there's
way?
nothing architecturally significant about either of those. They're just very fascinating buildings to me. Especially the Senate one, because it was shaped like a giant mushroom and then had like this massive open air, auditorium in the middle of it. I'm just, how you would figure that one out is mind-boggling to me.
I'm assuming that in the Star Wars world, they were playing with physics that they could do whatever they want with. Like gravity could be whatever they wanted it to be. So like, and then also in terms of not so much the structural design, because from a viewer audience standpoint, it needs to make sense in your head that it could work in order to keep you involved in the story. So I'm assuming that they were taking liberties with whatever kind of metal was designing it or whatnot. Yes? You're shaking your head. There's a majority audience that only listens to audio. I just want to emphasize that you're shaking your head.
Yes. The biggest example for that is the idea that Coruscant has a few hundred levels below the surface of built environment.
I had no idea.
Yeah, that's right.
That what we see on the surface in those movies is the top of essentially large single blocks that go deep down to the planet core. Actually, the Clone Wars, we do get to explore some of those locations, which, I geeked out about that there's this whole sub area to Coruscant that we actually did get to see some of it.
I had no idea that even existed, which is proof that I never took your advice and watched the show, even though you've hammered me multiple times to start watching it. I just can't do it.